1 week left until the U.S. presidential election. The nominees make a final push for votes.
As I've said many times, a man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
Hillary is not the victim. The American people are the victims of this corrupt system in every way.
We'll discuss the FBI's renewed investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, the impact on the race, and international reaction. Hello, I'm Arnold Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. The lead for U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton is narrowing in the polls after the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation announced it's resuming its investigation into Clinton's private computer server. According to Real Clear Politics, which averages the results of most major polls, Clinton's lead over U.S. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has dropped from 4.6 points to 2.2 points since Friday. And China is also weighing in on this. China is weighing in on what a Trump presidency could mean for global climate change. We begin our election coverage with CCTV's Nathan King. And Nathan, let's begin with those comments by China's top climate change negotiator, Xi Jinping. He's rejected a plan by Donald Trump to back out of that Paris Agreement. What do we know about that?
Well, exactly. You know, climate change hasn't come up much in this election campaign, even in the three debates. I don't think there was a single question about it. But a lot of countries really incredulous that Donald Trump would pull out of that hard-won agreement in Paris that the US and China spearheaded. And Xi Jinping really suggesting that the US stay its course. Let's take a listen.
If politicians resist this trend, I don't think they'll win the support of their people, and their country's economic and social progress will also be affected. So on this point, I believe a wise leader, especially a political leader, should take policy stances that follow global development trends. As long as they are a wise leader, I am confident they will do so.
Obviously, China and others do not interfere in the election, but they have made some comments. Remember, Donald Trump did actually call climate change a Chinese-invented hoax at one stage.
Now, Nathan, on Friday, the FBI announced it was renewing its investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. How unusual is that, and how has it played out in this election?
You know, and this is like a script from House of Cards or something. You remember a few months back, the FBI declined to charge Hillary Clinton over her use of a private email server, although they did say there was classified information involved that she did not willfully mishandle it. And then suddenly they discovered on a computer belonging to her longtime aide, Huma Abedin, who was married or is estranged from Anthony Weiner, who is in trouble on his own over sexting, that there may be emails in there that they haven't looked at. So they're essentially having a look at that. But he issued this letter, the head of the FBI, to Congress saying this was happening because he said the case was closed. And this has reignited Donald Trump campaign saying, look, there's still more smoke there and potentially fire as well. And coming just a week before the election, quite incredible, actually unprecedented, Democrats up in arms. In fact, one senior senator saying the FBI broke the law by interfering in the election. House of Cards stuff indeed.
Right, the campaign itself, less than 7 days to go. How will the candidates be spending their time?
There's a sigh of relief going across America that it's only 7 days away or so. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They are barnstorming across the country, especially in the so-called battleground states. What are we talking about? Florida, Ohio, North Carolina. Also out west, we have Nevada, Colorado, Arizona. Now, the climb for Donald Trump here is very, very high indeed. He basically has to win all of them, including potentially Pennsylvania as well, which is largely Democratic. Hillary Clinton only has to win Florida or a couple more to basically win. But the polls are tightening, and Donald Trump is now spending money in normally Democratic states like Michigan with large working class populations. We'll see if he can make a dent, but the polls generally give Hillary Clinton an edge up to 4 or 5 points. But of course, as you know, in this race, anything can happen, and it usually does.
Thanks, Nathan. That's CCTV's Nathan King reporting. Well, let's get to our panel right now. Joining us in our Washington, D.C. studio is Mike Lillis. He's a senior reporter for the political newspaper The Hill. Also with us is Syed Arikat. He's the Washington bureau chief of Quds Daily Newspaper, and we're joined by Hilary Shelton. He serves as the director of the Washington bureau of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, better known, I guess, Hilary, by its acronym, the NAACP.
Absolutely.
Mike, let me start with you. You work for an important political newspaper. You're at the coalface, so to speak, of this election. 1 week out from the election, and as we heard Nathan tell us, the race is tightening again. But these are national polls, aren't they? And America doesn't really have a national election. It's a state-by-state contest. So are the polls really narrowing?
They're definitely narrowing, but you made an important distinction. All this focus on the national polls is a little bit misguided because, you know, a lot of these presidential elections are won by people who never even win the popular vote. Obama was one of the very few who has won the popular vote twice in a row. That's an anomaly. Going back to Bill Clinton, he didn't win the popular vote. So real clear politics, yes. Nationally, the polls are shifting, the polls are tightening, but you have to focus, as Nathan said, on the battleground states. What's happening in these places? Donald Trump's path to victory is already very narrow. We know the blue states, we know the red states, and it's the battleground states that these candidates are going to have to focus on, not just with polling, not just with money, but the barnstorming that we're going to see here in the last week.
That's something we hear very often. Who has a path to the White House? Hillary Clinton has many ways to get to the White House, depending on the number of states she can win. Donald Trump doesn't.
Donald Trump doesn't, that's right. You know, his base, you know, the red states are in the South. Yeah. They're in the Midwest. Clinton has the population bases on the coasts, and she has a commanding lead until at least Friday in most of these battleground states, in the Pennsylvanias, in the Michigans, in the Wisconsins, in the places that Nathan just mentioned. And if she can, it's yet to be seen what the damage is from this Comey decision, from this announcement. We won't know that until November 8th, November 9th. But heading into it, she's got something new to worry about. The campaign, by all signs, is still confident, but they do have something now that was an October surprise that they didn't bank on.
Hilary, what is your reading of the race at this stage? I mean, given Donald Trump's track record, given the statements he's made, racist statements, bigoted statements, his treatment of women, his lack of experience, are you surprised that he's got so far?
I am in too many ways, as a matter of fact, particularly on the women's side of the equation. I mean, certainly as I look at the African-American community, which our organization very heavily serves, African-Americans are overwhelmingly supportive of Hillary Clinton and overwhelmingly in opposition to Donald Trump, quite frankly. And as we look at much of the overlap, our friends in the Muslim communities and other racial and ethnic minority communities, of course, the Latino communities are all very strongly opposed to Mr. Trump for so many things that he's had to say, and very strongly, again, supportive of Ms. Clinton. The biggest concern for us, however, is the obstacles that may occur as we move towards the polls. What we're very delighted to see is all the early voting that's going on across the country. We believe that will help circumvent a lot of the challenges with long lines at the polls on Election Day. And quite frankly, we're actually urging NAACP representatives from throughout the United States to go to the polls now. If early voting is available to you, utilize it to make sure that there are no problems. If you get to the polls and find out there is one, you can hopefully fix it before the election and be able to cast that vote and have it counted. So I am surprised. I'm surprised he's gotten as far as he has. I'm surprised to see so many American women, particularly white women, coming out and supporting him for what seems to be almost antiquated reasons in a lot of ways. But it's fascinating to see all this happening right now.
Syed, what's your take on this? Given all that Hillary has just told us, why is this race so close then?
Well, you know, obviously that the polls were about to tighten up anyway. I mean, you know, this is the last week. You know, normally you have a big lead after the convention. There are elements, there were so many October surprises that really gave Hillary Clinton a push, so to speak, and then you have this thing. But I believe that it would have, the polls would have tightened anyway, without even the Comey thing. Because, you know, until now, really, this Comey issue has not had time to incubate yet, or, you know, be reflected in the polls or people's sentiments and so on. So it was from the beginning that this race was going to be tight. There was some, you know, feeling that a great many Republicans will abandon the base, but they will come back at the end, and that is exactly what is happening.
Mike, what's your feeling on the email controversy? Do you think it's going to have a major effect, a significant effect on how voters cast their ballots next week?
Well, we don't know what the emails are going to reveal, if anything, before November 8th. Comey seems to think there might be something there. Whether or not there is, we just don't know.
And it's highly unlikely that we will know that by next Tuesday, would we?
Well, it depends on how many emails they got to dig through. I mean, his silence after the fact is something as remarkable as the announcement, I think, at this point, and which is why the Democrats are so up in arms. But what this does that's so damaging to Hillary Clinton is she's already not popular. Her disapproval rating is above 50% for both candidates. I mean, it's an unusual election in that sense to begin with. But she, for a long time, has had trust issues. There is a sense that the Clinton team, going back to Bill, is insular. It's this kind of closed box that nobody else has access to. They protect themselves. They treat their friends well, but they kind of shun everybody else. They're very secretive. They don't play by everybody's rules. You hear Trump say this every day from the stump. So this feeds into that damaging image, and it's going to hurt her in terms of trust of the voters. And to get people to the polls, you need them to trust you.
Hillary, the director of the FBI, James Comey, has been taking a lot of flack for sending this letter to Congress, for making this announcement last Friday. But if we look at this objectively, isn't this Hillary Clinton that brought this problem on herself by flouting the rules in the first place?
Well, I think you could certainly argue that, there's certainly the mistakes that were made and how she's handled her email accounts, utilizing her own personal server, are certainly things, as we look in hindsight, that should not have happened. However, the big concern for us is how this is really playing out in many ways. In essence, what we have is another distraction. It's extraordinary for the head of the FBI, our chief policing organization, so to speak, in the United States, would actually publicly talk about a case that is open now in the way he's discussing this case. And first saying, well, we took a look at it, and even then, as he talked about, we didn't find anything illegal in the emails that we found or how she's done it. We can argue that it was reckless. So then he goes from legal assessments then to editorial assessments of what's happened, which raises another very important issues for us. In essence, has he taken a position on this is coming through these editorial issues, which is certainly contradictory to what the head of any policing organization doing an investigation like this should be doing. But then to add other challenges, of course, is what's happened as they looked at Uma's information. And utilizing...
That's her assistant.
The assistant, exactly. Utilizing her server then as a tool to come back around to the first set of pieces of information that he gathered that keeps this issue alive and on the table.
Let me just throw this in. As Michael points out, we don't really know what's on these emails.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going to happen. But suppose there's something incriminating in these emails. Did the director really have a choice? Because what if she won the election and this came out afterwards?
You know what? That's what they say. They say that there could have been something there. But you know, we have in this country, we have a system. We call it, you know, Congress and impeachment and so on. If there's, you know, such an offense that requires such a thing, so it is very difficult. I know. I mean, we would like to be very objective, and as objective as one can be, it's very difficult to take the politics out of it because look at the timing. I mean, this is really literally throwing a monkey wrench, or as some described, a hand grenade into this whole election thing. It could have waited. So we'll see. I mean, you know, ultimately it will be, you know, this thing either, you know, sort of looked at or analyzed through the media, through the political system, and we will find out.
Okay,
but
well,
it has all the markings of a political.
Donald Trump, of course, has taken full advantage of this in the last week of the election. Let's take a listen to some of what he said. Let's watch.
Hillary is the one who sent and received classified information on an insecure server, putting the safety of the American people under threat. That's what she did. $650,000. You know what I call that? That's the mother lode. Hillary is not the victim. The American people are the victims of this corrupt system in every way. And this is your one chance right now, November 8th, to change it.